Well, good morning, everybody. This is the news that we are waking up to for Monday, January 27th, 2025, day 1070 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. I'm Peter Alexievich, and last night it was loud here in Kyiv. There's just no two ways about it. It was loud. It was a sleepless night for everybody. They love doing that on Sunday night. I swear to God, right, so that you're exhausted for the whole week. That is the goal, fuckers. Anyway, 104 drones last night, 57 of them shot down, 39 of them taken out with active countermeasures, 96 in total. That's a 92% interception rate. God bless the Ukrainian armed forces. Now, Lukashenko on the right, pictured on the right there, the so-called president of Belarus, was reelected yesterday, for a seventh consecutive term. Now, what is really funny about this to me is he got 86.3% of the vote. Right, because of course, who wouldn't love that guy? But Putin, if you remember in his recent re-election, got 87% of the vote. So Lukashenko still does not know, even though it's all a fraud, he does not dare show up Putin in his election. It's really funny to me. The most disgusting thing I saw from this piece of shit over the weekend was in his speech on Sunday. He mentioned Elon Musk, and he gave a little Heil Hitler Nazi salute. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. And here he is, the two dictators in Europe. On the left, you see there is our boy Orban, who, thank God, today showed some reason in the European Council meeting. He did not veto the sanctions on Russia, which we were all afraid he was going to do, which he had threatened to do, and we were afraid he was going to do. So thank God, European sanctions on Russia have been extended for another 6 months. However, what Orban got in exchange for that was he vetoed the EU resolution to condemn Lukashenko's elections as a fraud and Lukashenko as illegitimate. So the two of these are working hand in hand, literally. Further, he went on to say that the EU must pressure Ukraine to continue the transit of Russian oil and natural gas. They want the gas lines turned back on for cheap Russian gas, and they want the oil flow to continue. Now, the terms and conditions of the flow of oil, it's going to be a while before they can shut down those pipelines. So that's not an immediate concern. Everybody else in Europe, except Orban and Fico, have figured out alternatives that work, and Transnistria if you include the breakaway republic. Everybody's figured out other things that work or are in the process of doing so. It's only these bootlicking holdouts who want to keep being fed by Mother Russia, just sucking on that fossil fuel teat, that are the exceptions to the rule. And we'll talk about Fico in a minute. Now, Lukashenko, I guess, now you might say to yourself, okay, Lukashenko did a Heil Hitler salute, and I thought that was the most disgusting thing I heard from him all weekend. You might say, well, Petey, wait a minute. He also threatened to station a bunch of Oreshnik missiles right on the border with Ukraine. Doesn't that freak you out? Right? He says the Russians are sending him Oreshniks any day now, and he's going to put these massive $120 million a piece missiles right on the border. Right? It'll be a 6-minute flight time to Kyiv. Are you okay with that? Yeah, I'm fucking okay with that. You know why? Because they don't fucking work. They're these immense $120 million things. But the design, I mean, they're not really making them, right? They're just retrofitting old RB-56s, I think was the designation. Nuclear missiles. So this is a nuclear missile retrofit to be a conventional missile. Well, okay. What does that mean? It means the warhead, or the warheads in this case, because this uses multiple reentry vehicles. There's 6 primary compartments, and each of those compartments contains 6 submunitions or separate re-entry vehicles. We say re-entry vehicles because this thing is ballistic, right? It goes straight up to the edge of space, and then it deploys its warheads, which, coming in from that high up, come in at hypersonic speeds. We believe that the re-entry vehicles that hit in Dnipro were coming in at nearly or maybe more than 11 times the speed of sound. Now, if that's a nuke, it doesn't matter, right? Because as soon as it goes off, everything is vaporized, depending on what size the warhead is, for a kilometer, 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers, whatever. But they're not going nuclear. They've retrofitted these to be conventional. The problem with that is they're not meant to be conventional. They're meant to carry nuclear explosives. And consequently, your payload is extraordinarily limited. You can maybe put 22 kilograms of conventional explosives in each of those independent warheads. But they didn't do that when they hit Dnipro, did they? There were no conventional explosives on board. Why do you think that is? And what they said was the re-entry vehicles come in so fast that they vaporize everything that they hit, which is true. But because this is a nuclear design, there's nothing precise about it, right? A nuclear weapon doesn't have to get within 100 meters of the target. It doesn't fucking matter. But if you're just counting on the re-entry vehicle, then it's got to be precise, and there's nothing precise about these. Those things that hit in Dnipro, they were supposed to be hitting the military-industrial complex there. They hit private homes, apartment buildings. And yeah, there were certainly individual tragedies that day. And they destroyed homes, but they did very little damage overall. The city certainly was not turned to dust, as was threatened. So why don't they just pack 22 kilograms of explosives into every one of these re-entry vehicles? Here's why. Because it's coming in at 11 times the speed of sound. It's moving so fast that your fuses have to be so precise in terms of when you hit the go button, right? When you light the fuse. Otherwise, the thing is just right. It's going so fast. If you're off by a half a second lighting that fuse, it just explodes harmlessly 100 feet in the air. If you're off by half a second the other way, it explodes when the re-entry vehicle is already buried in the ground. Very difficult math. And everybody or virtually everybody that could do very difficult math left Russia in a massive exodus because they had brains. They could see what was coming. So they have been unable to solve this payload problem, it appears. Because I'll tell you right now, if they had solved the payload problem, we would be fucked. These things would be raining down on us all the time. Well, maybe not all the time. They're $120 million a piece, right? But as far as I can tell, as far as I'm concerned, as far as anybody that's looked at this problem seriously is concerned, these things are basically a myth. According to General Budanov of the Ukrainian Military Intelligence Directorate, it's possible that Russia has 10 of them, prototype versions, and that's it. And with everything that's going on in Russia, it seems unlikely that they have a lot of time, energy, resources, and funding to fund the serial production of this missile. Hell, they're having trouble getting enough gas to put in the tanks. Now, we talked about Orban and Lukashenko. Then you got Robert Fico down in Slovakia. And he's another dictator wannabe, boot-licking, ass-kissing son of a bitch indebted to the Kremlin. And he has threatened Ukraine over the gas pipeline shutdown because he did nothing to create a solution, to find alternative solutions for gas, right? Czechia is happy to share gas with them. Czechia is happy to use the Transalpine pipeline that they extended to solve the problem for themselves. Happy to use that Transalpine pipeline to get natural gas from Italy into Slovakia. Fico doesn't want to hear about it. He is intent on punishing Ukraine and making Ukraine give him back his Russian gas, which is not going to happen as far as I can tell. So the people in so we've talked about dominoes to watch on this channel a lot, right? Armenia, longtime ally of Russia, has turned away from Russia and is moving to the EU. Syria, the loss of Syria, huge domino that fell right there. Slovakia is another domino to watch. Now, I thought we had it in the bag. There was a vote of no confidence last week or 2 weeks ago now, maybe, that Fico just barely, by the slimmest of margins, managed to squeak through and stay in power. However, after this weekend of protests, some actions have been taken in the parliament that may result in snap elections soon, and we may see him voted out. Keep your fingers crossed. Keep your fingers crossed. Certainly, the people of Slovakia are letting everybody know what they think, right? 100,000 people on the streets of Bratislava Saturday. That's what you're looking at here. Plus, protests, not this big, but thousands and thousands of people on the streets of at least 8 other cities protesting this movement toward submission and vassal statehood to Russia versus independence and modern relations with Europe in the EU. Dominoes to watch. This is really tragic. Donald Trump, on his first day in office, signed an executive order immediately stopping all foreign aid, except for food assistance aid to Egypt and Israel. Food and military assistance aid to Egypt and Israel. At least that's what was in the executive order. They were specifically called out. Ukraine was not. However, moments after the executive order was signed, Andrei Kovalenko from the Ukrainian Center for Countering Disinformation came out and said this would not affect military aid to Ukraine. Marco Rubio then repeated that this would not affect military aid to Ukraine that's already in the pipeline, at least. However, it does affect all the humanitarian aid to Ukraine. And that's of great concern, because one of the ways that the government here in Ukraine continues to function is because we gave them a grant to pay their salaries, the employees' salaries. We pay the salaries of the firefighters, the first responders, the police officers in much of the country. So the stability, the social cohesion and stability of the Ukrainian government has benefited greatly from direct humanitarian aid. And then there's a ton of other programs to Ukraine, right? Food assistance, educational assistance, assistance for displaced Ukrainian youth, children who have lost their parents, etc. And all of that is on hold. It's a humanitarian crisis, not merely for the people in Ukraine, or not just for the people of Ukraine, but for every single country in need that we help. And this is going to open the door to our enemies, open the door to Russia. There are people who can't get fed now all of a sudden because we've cut off aid. Russia, China, our enemies are going to step in and fill that void in a heartbeat. It is just an astonishingly ignorant, short-sighted action that abnegates our position as a leader in the world. Donald Trump's entire program is to disassemble the American federal government, in favor of an oligarchy run by him and his friends. That's the bottom line. And I'll tell you something, America, you better wake the fuck up to that, and you better decide which side you're on, because we will not survive 4 years of this tyrant and his gang of goons and goblins. We simply can't. Now, this is Ryazan Oil Refinery. I'll play this for you. And the Ryazan Oil Refinery, you might say, why are we talking about this? This was hit last week. No, it was hit again this weekend. They double tapped it. Now, last week, they hit the oil storage tanks. At least 3 tanks burned, and that spilled over into the hydro treatment unit, which is a required step in the processing of diesel and aviation fuel. And it appears that that unit has been damaged badly or destroyed, likely destroyed. It appears that way. This time, they hit a different area where there were some small storage tanks. So I don't know what was in them. But more importantly, there were units there. Now, what units they were is unclear, but it's my opinion the Ukrainians strike critical infrastructure, right? So it's likely that, like the hydro treating unit, where if you take that out, you don't make diesel and aviation fuel anymore, they took out some other critical unit for other processing, right? They're making it impossible for anybody to use this refinery. And that's important because this refinery is the 3rd largest in Russia. It refines 7% of all of Russia's refined oil products. Huge. They do 130 million barrels a year. 17 million tons of oil go through this plant. And right now the whole area is cordoned off and is still burning. That's going to be a problem. That's going to be a problem for the Russians. Ooh, sorry. Mark Rutte. Now, I got to turn to my notes for this because this is a little more complicated. Bloomberg is reporting that Mark Rutte, the NATO Secretary General and former Prime Minister for the Netherlands, has been sharing classified weapons recommendations with the EU to boost the defense coordination. So these are standardizations for military terms, weapons calibers, and common rules for military shared use and communications systems. The EU diplomatic chief, Kallas, speaking at the annual European Defense Agency conference, January 23rd, so just a few days ago, underscored Rutte's earlier comments regarding European defense posture and the need to prepare for future conflict with Russia, saying, and I quote, "For too long, we have offered Russia alternatives, hoping that it would choose cooperation or economic prosperity for its people over fraudulent imperialistic ambitions. Instead, Russia's defense industry is turning out tanks, glide bombs, and artillery shells in vast quantities. And we need to be worried about the future, right? I mean, it's just that clear. It's just that clear. And I would argue that we're making the same mistake with Donald Trump, pretending that this is normal, pretending that we should go through the motions with him. The felon should be in jail. He should never have had the chance to be reelected. Merrick Garland and Joe Biden, in their weakness, let us all down. It's a sin. It's a tragedy. And it is Putin's greatest victory, getting that copper-toned con man reelected. It's a sin and a shame. Now, the North Koreans in Kursk. They are having a hard time of it. It is being reported that a large group of North Koreans were surrounded and refused to be taken prisoner. They all pulled a hand grenade pin and shoved it between themselves and their flak jackets, as they have been instructed and trained to do. Rather than surrender, they took themselves off the field of battle. And this was after, of course, the Ukrainians had decimated their ranks, just destroyed everybody. They were the only survivors. And they could have chosen to live, but they did not. This is on the heels of the video that we saw of 150 Koksan 170 millimeter artillery units, self-propelled guns, en route to Kursk. And word from South Korean intelligence confirmed by the Pentagon and Budanov that there are another 12,000 North Koreans on their way and will arrive in Kursk within the next 60 days. They are principally gunners, artillerymen, and rocket specialists. And they will be operating these Koksan 170s, and they'll be operating the covert trucks, right? Did you see those? They're box trucks, but really they're secret MLRS systems. The roof opens up, and the guns come out of there. Now, the funny thing about that is, if I'm not mistaken, those are 8 barrels, right? Or 8 tubes for the rockets. Russia operates MLRS systems that fire 42 rockets in a volley. It's a big step down, these North Korean systems. It's a big step down for the Russians. But that's all they got left. That's all they got, right? They don't have hardly anything left. Ukraine has destroyed 22,000 artillery systems in 3 years. I'm telling you, the demilitarization of Russia is the best money the United States has ever spent. Musk I just love this picture. I think it's hysterical, right? It's a great moment in history. But this is from his recent speech at the AfD conference, the Alternative for Germany conference in Germany. Now, AfD is a far-right group. It's like the German MAGA. And he was there saying all kinds of Nazi bullshit to a bunch of the descendants of actual Nazis, right? Well, he's a descendant of actual Nazis, right? His grandparents were in the Canadian Nazi Party. But that's not why his picture is up there today. His picture is up there today because he is being denied an office in the White House despite Donald Trump's offer of one. Or maybe Donald Trump offered him one and then turned to the chief of staff of the White House and said, yeah, don't give him one, but you take the blame, okay? That could be too. But that's a good sign that maybe Musk is being marginalized, just like Vivek Ramaswamy has been done, right? You may have seen Vivek Ramaswamy has been pushed out and will not be joining Elon Musk as co-directors of Doge or whatever. And finally, here's a little bit of fun. This is by Pokrovsk. The Russians got up on the top of that hill and planted a flag. And barely before they were able to run away, this is what happened. Boom! Thanks for coming. Don't let the door hit you on the ass on the way out. All right, that's it for me for the news that we are waking up to. Guys, I'm sorry this is so late today. I had some technical difficulties. I had to restart this recording a couple of times. I'm just absolutely exhausted, and I was literally up all night because of the air defense. So my brain is a little bit foggy this morning. So I will see you in the live tonight. Thanks.